Good morning. Peace and blessings. Happy Wednesday. I'm the Moon Mama, and today is the day that Mercury rules. And Mercury is, how y'all doing? Okay, let me see if I can pull this down here. Okay, great. So first of all, I'm just between myself. Let me just say that. Happy Wednesday. Today's Mercury's day. And the sun is in Virgo and the moon is in Libra with Mercury. And Mercury has been in Libra for probably about 12 days because it's at the 12th degree. And Mercury is in its shadow. It's getting ready for its retrograde, which is going to begin on the 26th of September. And so let me say that I am extraordinarily sensitive right now. The sun is in Virgo, and I've been having these interesting experiences. Like, I can feel my heart in this way that I've never been able to really feel it. It's almost like I can feel, this is gonna sound silly, but it's like I can feel like there's something going on in the chambers of my heart that feels like bubbles, or it's very subtle though. It feels like my heart is being redone. It's really interesting, and I'm so happy that I understand astrology, because the sun governs the heart, and the sun is in Virgo, and I am a Virgo. So it's like I'm getting upgrades. I'm having power surges that most women would call hot flashes. But they really are power surges. We in the West, we have a real misunderstanding of what happens when our cycle goes away. Like, I watched all of us be like, oh, this is horrible. But really what's happening is your energy is coming back to you. And so I'm having a lot of power surges. I'm having these interesting little flutters in my heart. I woke up this morning at 2 a.m. and I've been up since then. There's just a lot of transformation and changes that are going on, and we're all being upgraded. So wherever your sun is, when the sun gets there, just do yourself some due diligence and really take care of yourself. Rest and drink a lot of water. Yesterday I had a girlfriend of mine came over and did some medicine where she put this medicine in my eyes, and let me tell y'all, it burned. like the other day, I was in here like, ah! It was so painful, but then it went away, and then it relaxed my nervous system, and I came into a new feeling. It was really very interesting. And I really recommend plant medicines. If you guys don't use plant medicines and herbs and things like that to support you, really do some research and find out how, because the herbs will help you heal your fear. They will help you heal your trauma from your childhood. They'll help do everything. But we have to be willing to stop listening to the Western medical industrial complex, because the psychologists are just going to put you on medication. And really what's going on with us, when we have depression and schizophrenia and all that kind of stuff, it's really because we are tapped into other dimensions, and those other dimensions are giving us information, and because the West doesn't acknowledge that kind of stuff, we then think we're crazy, or we think, and you're not fucking crazy. You just need to learn how to process your own energy. We need rites of passage and connection to herbs and connection to practices that really harness our power, because many of us are very, very, very powerful. And when we misuse our thoughts, when our energy is not being used correctly, then it will make us crazy. It really will, because we're using it incorrectly. I know when I was young, now that I understand astrology, when I was young, I lived in a constant state after I had puberty of wanting to kill myself. Like, I was constantly like, oh my God, I can't, because I used to have these incredible feelings that came through my body that felt so overwhelming that it would just sort of snatch me. And Had I known that I had Pluto conjunct my sun, it would have changed my life. I would have been like, oh, this is just what happens when you have that Plutonian energy, that death energy comes. But because we don't know these things, and we are siphoning our information and our wisdom from the West, which is completely inaccurate, we are left to the we're left to the system that really just misguides us. So I just do your research and learn and ask questions and recognize that there's something invisible. There's a mystical thing happening all the time. And if it's trying to get your attention, it will do whatever it needs to do to get your attention. So, I just wanted to say that. Okay, so for all of you guys who are Virgos, if any Virgos are listening, I hope that you're taking care of yourself. I hope that you're drinking a lot of water. Virgo risings, Virgo moons, Virgo suns, Pluto in Virgo, Jupiter in Virgo, Venus in Virgo. All those energies are really being upgraded right now in a really deep way, because Virgo is about integration. So it's personal. It's deeply into your own experience. So really, really, really pay attention to that. Okay, so Mercury is in Libra, and Mercury started its retrograde shadow yesterday at the 11th degree of Libra. And so it will go, it'll go for 3 weeks, and then on the 27th, it'll go turn around and go backwards back to the 11th degree of Libra. And so Mercury retrograding in Libra. Mercury is the planet that governs our perceived reality, and Libra is about marriage and partnership. So really all that means is our relationship with one other person. And that's a significant thing, because it requires that you pay attention to how you show up in relationships. It's asking you to take responsibility for how you create relationship from inside of yourself, right? So this is, like, I know when I was younger, I really believed that I needed a husband in order to be happy, to be loved. And that was the way that I was creating relationship inside of myself, with this idea that partnership looked a certain way, that, you know, I was very connected to the Western narrative around being rescued, being saved, being taken care of, being provided for. And that caused a lot of pain for me, but that was the way I would come into relationships, because that was the conditioning that I had received from my culture and from my family and from Christianity and from, you know, just being a woman. That's what we were taught to believe. And so subconsciously I would pursue that. I was, you know, in my mind looking for love and wanting a partner. And so by the time I was 19, I had been in love probably 75 times. Like literally, I remember, you know, just feeling like every man, or again, at that point they were boys, right? At that point, every one of them I had loved. Like I started having sex when I was 13, and I loved him, the one that I had sex with for the first time. I loved him, wanted to marry him. He dropped out of high school, and when he dropped out of high school, I lived in Watts, and you know, and we were Watts's poor, you know, I guess you would call it that, but it was a community, and we really were together. And then it was just when the crack epidemic hit, and so it really destroyed the community. But so I had my first boyfriend, Bernard, and then gang violence, and then Bernard, and then there was Markel. And when the crack epidemic came into the community, I watched all of the young men in the community, boys 15 and up or 14 and up, start to sell drugs, right? And so then I started to watch everybody go to jail. Like I started watching my peers go to prison, and I started watching them die, and I started watching them, you know, just all of these really terrible things happen. And what I understand now is that formulated the way I related. That formulated the way I related to love, the way I sort of had love connected to disappointment. I had love connected to heartbreak and sorrow and death, right? That because of my early formative years around relating were so so infused with the cultural, pain and sorrow. And so those are the things that I'm undoing now because Mercury is retrograde in Libra, right? So Mercury retrograde in Libra gives us the opportunity to tell a new story about how we relate to love, how we show up, how we practice our connections to others. Are we codependent? Do we have expectations for people to do things for us that we can do for ourselves? As women, we're often groomed to believe that we need providers and protectors. And then, there on some level, there's some truth to that, right? If we are deep in spiritual work or women who really are living their lives from the feminine paradigm, which is to be in sacred spiritual work and meditating and doing rituals and things like that. And in that case, you might need a partner who is making sure, my aunt, please, you might need a partner who's making sure that all the physical world things are taken care of while you live your life mostly in ritual and devotion to spirituality and being the spiritual sage for your community or your family, right? That does require a lot of sort of time, space, creative space, right? But for women who are in their masculine, you don't need that. We don't need protection like we're damsels in distress. That's what I want to say. We're not damsels in distress. We don't need to be saved, right? So for me, even though I don't live in that mindset anymore around the need to be saved or, the need to be protected and provided for in that way, there are still some ways that I want to relate to the masculine that really do. Stop it. I'm sorry, Ma. She's like pushing her tail up at me. There are some ways that I want to relate to the masculine that create harmony and balance and love and joy in my life, but that are not associated with the Western paradigm of relationship. The Western paradigm of relationship is based in the white European Western. It's like this princess in a palace who can't be touched, virgin, she's pure, protect her and keep her away, cover her up. That's not my reality, right? And if you look at indigenous cultures, the women really have a very different way of being than what the Western European cultures have done. And I feel like they have just destroyed. I feel like that paradigm just destroyed anything because it really handicapped the feminine and didn't really help her understand her power. It's like it made the feminine a child. Infantile, like there's a word that I can't think of it right now, but it just sort of made the feminine an infant, right? It doesn't bring her into her magic, into her mysticism, into her sexuality, into her sexual power. The Western Europe, it doesn't honor that. It says you should be pure, put your sexuality away. And that's nonsense. Yes, exactly. And fantasize. Exactly. Thank you. Thank y'all. I love y'all so much, right? Whoo, Lord, because I'm going to tell y'all, my brain has not been really working. It's real, like I have been, this sun in Virgo is like, ooh, it has me, like I literally, every day, all day long, I feel like I'm on a wave and I'm just on water. Like I could just be sitting around and I feel this energy just going in and out and in and out. And it's just like, wow, that's so fascinating. So we want to rewrite our stories around how we relate to others, how we relate to partnership. We want to really get ourselves into a new understanding of that. And while Mercury is at the 12th degree, it's the degree of creativity. And here's the thing, this Mercury retrograde can be really beautiful if we allow it to be. And if we start early, and I don't think I'm going to teach a class at all this time because I'm going to Africa and I won't be able to, when I come back is when the retrograde starts, but maybe I'll do a ritual when we get back. But but you don't, if you just pay attention, you don't need it, okay? You can do this. And so here's what you want to pay attention to. What's going on in your internal relationship world right now? What's going on? When Mercury starts in the shadow, you want to be paying attention, right? What's going on? So I'm noticing, like I have some old patterns that are showing up. Like I have a partner of mine that when we were together, they used to withhold their energy from me. They would pull all their energy in. It was real subtle. They had a Cancer rising, and I didn't know astrology then. They had a Cancer rising, and people with Cancer energy can be really manipulative in ways that you don't know, like emotionally, right? And because they don't necessarily use their words, because they tuck in and then they just sort of pull on the energy in the environment with their silence, or in ways that, and so he would do that and it would trigger me, and I would and I would start needing his approval and right? And so that energy has shown itself to me in the last couple of days. And I'm like, there it is. And it's born out of childhood patterning stuff around my mother and father. So I'm looking at it. I have captured it. And I'm like, okay, there it is. So I see a pattern that has been really deep inside of my life. Yes, those Cancers. I see a pattern that has been really deep inside of my life for a very long time. When I perceive that someone is angry with me, or that I have done something, I get busy trying to fix it. And so now I'm like, just notice that. Look at it. And as I just notice it and look at it, then I can ask myself, well, what else can we do here? What else can be done? The Divine Time said, I'm glad you just said this because I just started connecting with a Cancer. Yes, and they might be mature and whole and healed, and maybe they don't do that. Maybe they are able to use their words. So I don't want to project that onto, because here's the thing, everything has a shadow side. Yes, everything has a shadow side. So it's not all Cancers are that way. It's just depending on where they are in their development, right? So some Cancers, if they've developed themselves, can speak up or take care of their own needs or say what they need, or, and not make other people responsible and not pull from other people. But it depends on, like I said, it's all a spectrum, right? And we need the negative and we need the positive, because when we have these polarities, we get to experience all the energy and then see where we're going to land. So we don't want to make anything bad. We want to let go of language. One of the things about the English language is a toxic pool of lies, and it's just a trickster language, right? So when we say stuff like something is bad or that's wrong, those words, we want to start to really take responsibility for how we're speaking, because when we speak now, because the energy is changing so much on the planet, when we speak, we're creating these realities, and the language is tricky. The language is a trickster language. So be responsible. That's why I always say, Tupac predicted his death. Biggie, they predicted it and they created, right? Not that they predicted it, they created it. They didn't predict it. They actually spoke it into existence, And so we want to be really mindful, and not from a place of fear, because the universe, when your heart is pure and you have a desire to learn and grow and expand, the universe knows that. The universe can feel your energy, right? So if your heart is pure, know that, but still take responsibility, right? Like, don't just, yes, the energy for Mercury, it's very complex. It's whatever you say. If you say it's bad, then it's bad. If you say it's good, then it's good. That's Mercury. That's it, right? If you say it's up, then it's up. If you say it's down, then it's down. And anything in between. So you really want to understand the power of your thoughts. And it's not just what you say, it's also what you think. It's the thoughts that create patterns, right? So that's why it's important to listen to take in information that can, like, listen to music. I love the one, Tony Jones, right? Like listening to affirmational music and affirmations that can fuel your mind and your heart and reprogram you. Listen to them while you're asleep at night, right? Listen to high energy frequency music and things like that. And put words of encouragement all around your house, you know, and remind yourself of really what you're up to constantly. This is a high time. This is a high time. So with that, the moon is in Libra as well. And the moon in Libra is partnership, right? Like really feeling into this energy that we're going to go into this retrograde with. Like really feel it and see the patterns that you have in relationship. Do you expect other people to I read this quote from Frida Kahlo the other day, and it said something like, if I have to ask you, then I don't want it, right? I'm like, yeah, that's some suffering for you. I went and looked at her natal chart and saw that she had Saturn in Cancer. And I was like, I knew it. She has Saturn in Cancer because Saturn in Cancer refuses to speak, refuses to ask for what it really wants, right? So, so look at how you do partnership. And here's the thing, if you're somebody who refuses to speak or doesn't want to say to people, at least say it telepathically. At least say it in your mind, because if you say it in your mind or see it in your mind and be like, okay, I'm not going to say this to this person directly, but I'm going to say it to them in my mind, and I'm going to see them receiving it, and I'm going to see them happy about it. And how does that feel? Then you're not manipulating them and pulling on them. You actually are creating the energy and frequency of what you want to experience yourself, and you're not making somebody else responsible for it. So just like I said, take responsibility for your fucking self. That's it. That's what Virgo is about. You are responsible for yourself. No one else can do for you what you can do for yourself. And not to speak, we can read minds. I don't want to act like we can't, because we can. And if you're working on some telepathic shit, that's great. Then perfect it. Because telepathy is fantastic. I use telepathy a lot. I really do. I send signals to people. Sometimes if there are things I need to say to people that I know that won't be able to be heard in a way that feels okay, I'll just send it to them telepathically. And guess what? They always get it. They always do. They always hear me. But you know, I have a lot of double Mercury energy, so my energy goes like that. Okay, y'all. I love y'all so much. Let me say that my birthday is coming up, and I'm going to be, and I like to tell, I'm going to be 53. And wow, it's so interesting. 50 years. I was spending time with a friend yesterday and his daughter, who's 3 years old. And that was the age that I was when my mother took me to live with my grandmother when I was 3. And just being with this 3-year-old little girl was so lovely, and her father. And at some point, like, her little voice was so soft, and she wasn't really a chatty Cathy like I was as a child. But she said to her, she was like, Daddy. And when she said that, she went, Daddy. I literally, my heart fluttered. I was like, wow. Like the sweetness of a little girl calling on her daddy. Like, I never had to have that. I never got to have that as a child. And it just healed me. It touched me. And so I'm 53 years old. And for the first time, I'm experiencing things that I didn't get to experience as a little girl. And I really appreciate it. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. So with that, I love y'all. Have a really wonderful day. Peace and blessings. All right. Bye.